as abbreviated, is of course those, I believe, 7 Medicaid
Okay.
contracted insurance providers. So we do, I'm sure we could help facilitate, but if there's any work that the prevention contractors can do to get it started, that would be excellent.
Thank you.
I'm not sure to what extent Access shares that information. I'm sure that we, like I said, could help facilitate if needed, but hopefully would not be our primary role. So I'm going to take down that question just in case there's additional clarification from someone who's more involved in that than I am. Good questions. Okay, so that's for the MOU. Let me zoom in here a little bit. So of course, offer services regardless of religious affiliation. There's this Code of Federal Regulations for that. Participate in all state and federal site reviews and audits. Those would be scheduled by Access. Comply with the State of Arizona Accounting Manual. So again, that manual is available online through the General Accounting Office. However, one big one that I know that we are going to be working with is the Section 50 on travel. So make sure to take a look at those other sections as well to identify if there's other relevant items. This CFR Part 200 related to audit requirements for and cost principles for federal award. Need to maintain funds received in a separate ledger account, shall not mix funds with another source. That was going back to some of the stuff that Trish was talking about, managing those funds separately from other funds and keeping good record. Maintain adequate business systems to comply with federal requirements, including financial management, procurement, personnel, property, and travel. And of course, what does adequate mean? It means that it's written, consistently followed, and consistently applied. And Access has the right to review those. So in terms of more of the prevention related stuff here, we do want to ensure that
Emma, can I interject?
Coordinator? Sure. Is that
you have questions in the chat.
Okay, let's pause there. Thank you. So Lewis was asking,
Read those to you. Okay.
about the MOU, and because it says and or, would an MOU with the local REBA suffice? I hope I answered that. Clyde, is the local jurisdiction the same as the service area? Yes, good clarification. Does the MOU need to be 90 days from beginning of contract or beginning of when we signed the award? Is Stacy available to answer?
I am available. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, that would be from award is when we had that. So you should be all getting those in place. Emma, would you like me to read you questions as they come up?
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
And then Marissa looks like she said she missed the answer to Heidi's question, which is what we just talked about from when we were awarded. So you guys want to get moving on getting those in place.
Okay, thank you. All right, so in terms of the coalition coordinator should be full-time. There are situations that we've reviewed where it could be, you know, a half-time here and a half-time there combined to one full-time. We do want to see that there's a full-time person working on the grant for the coalition coordinator. The functions here that we've listed, and you all wrote to these in your proposals, they should reside in the local jurisdiction, provide staff support to the coalition, manage the strategic planning and implementation, understand the coalition framework, process, and requirements, monitor the overall process to guide the coalition, keep records of the work and decisions, ensure all coalition reporting is completed, distribute meeting minutes prior to meetings, agendas, etc. That person should be able to determine informational needs, such as collect and analyze information, and devise and develop statistical analyses and reports. They're skilled in organizing resources, establishing priorities, skilled at meeting facilitation and conducting action-oriented meetings, analyze and interpret financial data and prepare financial reports, statements, and/or projections. So of course, some coalitions may have their program staff that also works on the finance. However, there may be finance staff that is specific to that duty. And understand the strategic prevention framework and the ability to integrate it into all grant activities. So there's some more information here about that coalition coordinator, their qualifications. So that includes, they're not a member of the coalition and should not serve as elected officers. They're should have at least 2 years experience in these skills, or a minimum of 2 years in primary prevention, or a bachelor's degree in prevention science, public health, social work, or related fields. And of course, if they do not meet those basic functions at the time of the proposal or the award, the offer shall include a plan to address these functions as training needs in their workforce development and training plan. So those, again, we've reviewed the proposals, we've provided feedback, we've signed the contracts, but sometimes there are staffing changes. So please be mindful of those if you need to refill that coalition coordinator spot. Okay, I'm pausing to look at the information here. Okay, looks like we have no new questions at the moment, so we can move forward. So the prevention requirements, using interventions that fall into one of the following categories. So we're gonna be going into this, we've done this throughout the proposal process. We'll be doing more with the innovative prevention protocol deliverable that you have due coming up. We have a TA session on that, and we'll look at the template a bit later. So I'm gonna breeze over this real quickly. Essentially, we want to see evidence-based practices and programs, and there's definition here for that. You know, this is always in your contract document to refer to. So evidence-based practice as defined here, there's quite a bit that's included there. So we also do allow the implementation of non-evidence-based practices on a ratio of 1 evidence-based practice to 1 non-evidence-based practice. So in other words, an innovative program, a promising program, etc. So if you do have any programs that do not meet the evidence-based practice, that is okay. We will ask you to submit those to the Innovative Prevention Protocol deliverable, and we'll review those and help to designate its status. So I may have scrolled too far here.
Excuse me, Emma.
Emma,
Okay.
I have a question, Emma.
Oh.
This is Jamal again. So are you saying that one can, an organization or group or coalition can do a non-evidence-based program, period? Or do they have to also implement an evidence-based program in addition to the non-evidence-based? Because you're saying you're doing that ratio 1-to-1 thing.
Correct. So for example, if the coalition is running 1 program, that should be an evidence-based program. If they were to implement 2 programs, then there's, you know, that 1-to-1 ratio. You can implement 1 evidence-based program and 1 that does not meet that designation.
Okay, got you. Thank you.
Hi, Emma. This is Adriana Martinez. Can you repeat who will approve the non-evidence program?
Sure. So again, it's essentially if there's going to be an evidence or a program that's implemented that is not evidence-based, that is okay, as long as it's a 1-to-1 ratio with an evidence base. The protocol that will be submitted by the coalition for that program will be reviewed by the prevention team here at Access. So that would be all of our staff as available. So myself, Gabby, Carlos, and Nate. So it's a team-based approach to review that according to the specifications here.
Thank you.
I thought I could mute myself, but I guess I can't. I have to keep going. All right. So it looks like the next section here then is you've already all identified the coalition and or the responsible parties for implementing activities. If that changes, of course, you need to let us know. Implement all activities using the strategic prevention framework. Conduct and submit to Access a regional prevention needs assessment. We will go over that template later. It's due within 3 months of contract award. It's in the schedule of deliverables. You can use an existing needs assessment as long as it's not more than 3 years old. And so at the time of contract execution. So if you do have a needs assessment that is older than 3 years, we're just going to ask that, it's time to start that process for conducting a needs assessment. There's
Emma, we
develop
have
and
another
implement.
question.
Oh, thank you.
Yep, from Janet. It's when referencing the section, the coordinator and other coalition staff are not members of the coalition and should not serve as elected officers. Can it be elaborated?
I'm taking that down in case we need any further clarification, but essentially, so they're the one to coordinate all the activities. So we want to make sure that they are dedicated to doing that and focused to doing that with their time. That means that they should not also be a member of the coalition that, perhaps would then not facilitate, not be in charge of the meeting minutes. So basically just trying to ensure that they are focused on that role of being the coordinator and not necessarily the participant. Not serve as elected officers. I think, if there's a coalition, some are quite structured and may have presidents, chairs, co-chairs, et cetera. We want to make sure that they are in a position to be a coordinator and not necessarily in a different position such as those. I do want to see if Gabby's available on the line. She did say she was trying to call in, just to kind of check and make sure that's in line and if there's any additional clarification. Gabby, are you available?
Hi, can you hear me, Emma?
Yes.
Yeah, just to let you guys know, there is work going on around me, so there may be some background noise, so don't worry about that. But can you repeat your question, please, just so I can get the full picture before I answer?
Sure, just some folks are asking for clarification on the fact that the coalition coordinator should not be a member of the coalition and should not serve as an elected official.
Yeah, so the premise around that is really just to make sure that the coalition is its own functioning body and that the staff member, although I'm sure this wouldn't be an issue with any of the coalition coordinators, that the staff member is really just serving as a staff to provide support to the coalition. So we'd like that coalition to kind of function as its own entity and its own procedures, its own development. So that's kind of the whole reasoning behind that. Does that help answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
And Emma, Jamal again,
Right.
question on 5.3.7 in regards to the needs assessment. Wondering if Jane is going to be speaking a little bit to that and offering support perhaps in doing that?
So the needs assessment is a requirement for the coalitions. We wouldn't necessarily dictate how you go about that. You all wrote to the plan into terms of how you're going to conduct the needs assessment in your proposals. So that's going to give you some guidance there. In terms of if you wanted to hire a contractor to help you with that, we need to make sure that that's within your budget. And in terms of Jane and Wellington, they're contracted with Access currently on the prevention side is for evaluation. So not necessarily relevant to the needs assessment deliverable.
I have a question about that needs assessment deliverable. Is there like a goal number or a percentage that we have to reach? And is it an adult needs assessment, or would you like an adult and a youth needs assessment, especially for servicing youth in our coalition?
So that's actually a really great question. Like I said, we're going to get into the template for that needs assessment a little bit later to get some more detailed information. But just generally, because I don't memorize it off the top of my head, but I think that what we'd like to see is that the needs assessment is related to the population and the community that you're going to work with. So certainly if you're focused on youth, you would need to have the youth in the needs assessment. If you're focused on adults, older adults, parents, other specific subsets, those would be very relevant to get the needs assessment data on as well. There may be a situation, I think that it's in there where just because you're maybe focused on youth, that doesn't necessarily mean that the needs assessment should only be on youth, because of course we know that they're living in the context of much more than their own lives in the youth population. So we certainly would want to take a look at the larger community. But in terms of the specifics on, who it should be on, it should certainly be inclusive of those in the target population and the larger community. Additionally, we don't specify a certain number of individuals to partake in that. But it's going to be relevant to the community that you're serving, of course. If you have all of Phoenix or if you have Maricopa County, that's going to be different than some of those folks who are out in rural areas in terms of the numbers that you're going to reach. So it should be relevant to, again, to that community, proportionally speaking. So then the next one is to develop and implement an annual workforce development training plan for those who will work on the grant, including pertinent trainings, continuing education, et cetera. We do have some required trainings in here. We want to make sure that folks are up to date for their substance abuse prevention skills training or access designated equivalent, prevention ethics, screening, brief intervention, or referral to treatment. We know in prevention, we will run across folks who are needing, they may be in that indicated population where they may need more than the prevention services. So we need to be able to screen and refer as one of those CSAP strategies. We want to make sure we also are trained in suicide awareness and prevention training. So there's a few examples here. Those are not the necessarily required ones. And HIPAA, of course, adverse childhood experiences, cultural competency, diversity and inclusion, fraud, waste, and abuse prevention, the access logic model training, and the access evaluation training. So this, the logic model training is, it has been offered live previously, and it is now available in recording form on our grants webpage. And the evaluation training is to be determined. I think that is today's section may constitute that, but I would probably need some clarification. Definitely going to be doing some technical assistance on the evaluation today.
So Emma, this is Jamal again. And this might be one of the challenges of being a seasoned preventionist, is, when we had the REBAs, they would make sure that a lot of those trainings were offered, so that, teams weren't, or coalitions weren't running around trying to, hit up different people and things of that nature. Is that something that Access is looking at, is actually offering these trainings to providers, if you will?
So I do know some of these trainings are available through Access. Gabby, can I ask you to identify if we will be offering all of them or certain ones of them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're going to try our best to ensure that we're making sure you guys have access to the majority of these trainings. For example, the substance abuse prevention skills training or the equivalent, the prevention ethics, and then any, of course, access related trainings, including the logic model and evaluation, will be ones that we will work to help ensure that they're being offered. I would think hopefully at least twice a year. We would like to leave some of the onus on the coalitions to find some of these other trainings. If you guys are having trouble finding trainings, we just say, please let us know. We may be able to point you to some other resources or entities that are putting these trainings on. So if you guys are coming up with any roadblocks for finding availability of any of the other trainings, please just let us know and we can help you find those.
Hi again. I have a question. You mentioned you are giving here 6 months, 3 months dates when at the time of hire, at the date of hire. So if, for example, let's say that I'm already the coalition coordinator, obviously I have been coordinator for the past 2 years. When then we'll start counting those 6 months when we got awarded?
Seeing if Gabby wanted to chime in there, I would say yes. I mean, we obviously can't require you to have it done a year and a half ago from when you were actually hired. So if you've already been in the role for 2 years and you have not had this training yet, we would hope to see that within 6 months from the contract then.
6 months from the
Emma,
contract.
you're correct.
Yeah, because I took the trainings, but it may be more than 6 months. So I just want to be sure we'll be allowed to submit or not. Thank you.
Yeah, and if there's an issue with availability of trainings, that say there's one 7 months outside and it's not 6 months, just let us know, because we may be able to help find trainings sooner, or we may be able to discuss, having a plan in place to get that training done. And Emma is correct. It's either from 6 months of date of hire or the date of contract start. So that'd be 7/1, because we also know that some of you are hiring new coalition coordinators. So we wanted to give that new coalition coordinator time within their 6 months of start date to get those trainings as well.
Good, thank you.
Anna, did you have a question?
Hello, yes, I do have a quick question, and it's just, I believe that maybe some of us have already taken some of these trainings, and I was wondering if we could use those, or do you guys want updated trainings? That would be my only question about that.
Sure, I think
So
that,
I can-
yes, please, Gabby.
Sorry, Emma, I can jump in on some of these things. Again, sorry for the background noise. So if you guys have already completed any of these trainings, what we would recommend is when you are putting together your workforce development plan for the coordinator, that the date of training is added. And if you are able to submit the certificate along with the plan or the email that you attended, something like that to show that you did complete the training, that would be something we would need to have as well. I understand it may be difficult to find certificates if you don't save everything. So if you do come up with any roadblocks on that, just keep us in the loop and let us know, and we can work through to see what type of documentation we can utilize to ensure that we can mark this as complete.
Thank you.
All right. So that's the workforce development training plan and the required trainings. We have develop and submit to access an annual prevention budget. So you all have done that with your award, with your proposal. That'll be due again next year. Develop and submit to access an annual logic model using the access logic model template. Many of you have done that. I'm not sure if all of you have done that, but we will go over that template later as well. Submit to access a strategic prevention plan using the access prevention strategic plan template. Again, some of you have done that, maybe not all of you, but we will go over that one as well. Directly oversee and implement comprehensive primary prevention interventions that are evidence-based, research-based, or promising practices according to peer-reviewed journals as defined by current SAMHSA guidance. So here's that 1-to-1 ratio, and it actually might be clarifying something that I said earlier. So the innovative prevention interventions are to be administered at a ratio of 1 innovative intervention per every 1 EBP, RBP, or PP, so promising practice. So I maybe had misstated that a little bit earlier. It's the distinction of evidence-based, research-based, and promising practice to every 1 innovative. So, and there again, we identify that innovative prevention program intervention protocol in the schedule of deliverables. And then the CSAP strategies, it says the comprehensive primary prevention interventions will include all CSAP strategies as follows, and they're listed there. Thank you, Clyde, for your comment in the chat box about trainings. Take a note of that. And serve each Institute of Medicine or IOM population per community need. Additionally, utilize and adhere to access evaluation measures, including standard evaluation measures, tools, and instruments to measure process, outcome, and expenditure data in accordance with the Access statewide strategic plan and related documents, as well as the SABG activities and expenditure plans, SABG activities and expenditure reports as specified in the schedule of deliverables. So we'll be, again, seeing those evaluation tools later today. We will also have some of this as SAMHSA reporting that we will require later on in the year. Data collection and submission to occur at least monthly for process measures with outcome measures to be reported on a quarterly basis. Participate in mandatory meetings as scheduled by Access for project oversight, monitoring, and technical assistance. Participants to include at least the coalition coordinator, and a proxy may attend in the coalition coordinator's stead, given 2 business days notice, except in case of emergencies. Contractors shall submit documentation and participate in all SABG operational reviews as specified in the schedule of deliverables, which may include but is not limited to documentation of compliance with this RFP and state and federal requirements. Participants include the coalition coordinator, direct service staff, fiscal staff, and other individuals as identified. Work with the schools in the local jurisdiction to enhance participation in the Arizona Youth Survey as administered by the ACJC. Activities should include but are not limited to outreach to local schools, providing information regarding the AYS, and the promotion and use of benefits and use of the AYS. So some of you are already doing this. Some of you created a nice plan in your proposals. Should be aware that that's one of the requirements. Should I pause and see if there's any questions so far? We're almost there. All right. Another requirement, conduct at least 9 formal coalition meetings per year. I'm sorry, Monica, your hand is up. Is that left over
Yes.
from last time?
Yeah, just one question. I believe that it will be the Arizona Youth Survey, right? Is it done every 2 years, or is it maybe longer than that? And I wonder if it's not being done at this year, when are we how are we reporting on that, or how does that work for us?
Yeah, great question. So the Arizona Youth Survey is a really important tool for us in prevention. It is done, I believe, every 2 years, and it's on the even year. So it was just done in 2020, will be done again in 2022. And so, you know, even on the off years when it may not be implemented that year or administered that year, it's a great opportunity for coalitions to get involved with their schools, though, to make sure that they're aware of it. And, you know, perhaps if they're not participating in the Arizona Youth Survey, then that's a great opportunity to work with them to explain the benefits of that, so that we in prevention can get more schools onto that survey, and we can collect more data and inform our prevention work.
Thank you.
Yeah, because there are some gaps there that create a bit of a barrier for planning. Okay, so another requirement: conduct at least 9 formal coalition meetings per year, monitor and evaluate the coalition participation on an ongoing basis, with representation of all required sectors at formal coalition meetings. The monthly formal coalition meeting shall be attended by at least 8 sector representatives at least 9 months of the calendar year from the mandated sectors as described within this RFP. So there is a definition section in this RFP, and that's where we identify what a formal coalition means and what all those sectors that are required. So variation in the sectors is acceptable. A formal coalition meeting does not include work groups, subcommittees, or ad hoc meetings. Representation at each meeting should be tracked by meeting notes and sign-in sheets. So really, this is just the requirement to set the coalitions up for success, for trying to ensure that participation, make sure it's well-rounded and well-documented. And those sectors, again, are available in the definition section below. Submit all publication materials that are paid for by grant funding for prior approval as specified in the schedule of deliverables. Each publication material shall include the following disclaimer language. I won't read that all for you, but you can essentially copy and paste that and then insert the grant number, which I don't have it off the top of my head, but we could always help you out with that. Utilize Microsoft Office software when preparing contract deliverables. And then matching of funds. Matching of funds will not be required for this RFP. However, Access reserves the right to request this documentation on an ad hoc basis as part of any programmatic or fiscal review requirements or audits to verify SABG primary prevention program reach and effectiveness. Match can include, but is not limited to, cash and or in-kind resources. And that's the end of the scope of work besides the schedule of deliverables. And I'm going to be pulling this up later when we talk about the templates. I'll just give you a brief peek here and remind you that this is here in your contract available for you.
Can you clarify the due date of the needs assessment? Because up above it says within contract award, but here it says October 1st.
Sure. Needs assessment. Let's scroll back up to that one. So the prevention needs assessment is due, well, it says annual, but once every 3 years, you could always provide an update to it on an annual basis. October 1st. I think what that is indicating is actually up above. It said within, doing my math in my head, July, September, October. I believe it says within 90 days of contract award, which is that October 31st. So in one section, it's saying in terms of days after contract award, and in the other, it's just giving you the hard date. Does that make sense? Yeah, here, within 3 months of contract award.
I think the confusion is like our contract award and others is May 14th, but the funding started July 1st. So which date are we going by?
Thank you, yeah.
Yeah, because there wouldn't have been funds in contract. I mean, prior to July 1st, there wouldn't have been funds to do the needs assessment.
I see.
So I
Gabby,
can
or
jump
Stacey?
in here if that's helpful. Yeah, this is Gabby. And then Stacey, if you want to jump in too, I can say that we sent the notice of award, which is not the contract start date. So the contract start date is July 1st. So anytime the contract says contract start date or 90 days, 30 days within contract, we're talking about July 1st. And Stacey, if you want to change anything I said or add to it, please feel free.
Oh, no, that's actually very good. And any place where it gives you a specific date, I would go by that also. But definitely what she says, we're going to go by the July 1st.
So that's true for the MOU too, right? Because I was like, whoa.
Yes, I was
Okay,
thinking about
thank
that.
you.
Yeah, go with
Thank
the, because exactly, go with the July 1st of the contract start date.
Oh, phew. That one got me worried there for a second, but that makes a lot of sense.
Well, and even there, I don't think that we're like saying on day 91, you're going to be having a meeting because I don't see your MOU. We just want to get those moving forward.
So a couple of clarifications. Clyde, you asked if I said that you could insert the grant number for publication. So yes, here where it says submit the publication materials, the ones that are paid for by grant funding for prior approval, there's this language here. You basically can copy and paste that onto your materials and insert where it says here XXX, because it was made possible by SAMHSA grant number. That's where you insert that grant number. Another clarification, so the MOUs are not due until 90 days after July 1st. That would be correct. Okay, so here's the schedule of deliverables again. I just want to scroll down to the bottom to make sure there's not something that I'm forgetting about. Is this as far as you wanted to go, Gabby? There's a little more info here.
This should be good. I do just want to, and I apologize, I don't have my slides up to remind me of things to talk about. But I think we had also listed discussing the submission process in SharePoint. Is that correct on the slide?
Good question. Let me check. So the scope of work overview, the schedule of deliverables, SharePoint, yes, interim submission process, and the communication outlining process to follow, SharePoint training to be determined.
Okay, yeah, I mean, if we're all finished with the scope of work portion, then we absolutely can dive into the SharePoint. So are there any other lingering questions we can address there?
I don't see any at this time. Looking for raised hands. I don't see any raised hands either. Any other questions, folks? All right.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and jump into this. And I do want to preface this by saying that there will be official communication coming out regarding this, this item. So we are going to be working with procurement, mostly Stacey, to go over this process. As I mentioned previously, it's a no small feat to upload 19 new contracts into our compliant SharePoint system. And we are taking a little bit more time than anticipated to get those contracts uploaded into compliance systems. So that being said, we are developing an interim submission process in order for you guys to submit deliverables in the interim before SharePoint is ready. And that process will be outlined in the official communication I'm mentioning here that will come, I believe, from procurement, or we'll talk Stacey about that and see who it's going to come from, regarding how to submit your deliverables. At this point in time, we're going to be utilizing a system where you submit it to your contract contact. So in that Google Doc with whoever is your access staff person designated, you'll be submitting deliverables to that person, and we will be utilizing a separate tracking mechanism on our end to monitor the submission and review and approval of those deliverables. So as I mentioned, official communication to follow that will outline the entire process, and we'll be working with procurement to get that moving. But I did just want to let you guys know that for the interim. We don't technically at this point have a date of when SharePoint will be ready, but we're hoping in the near future so that we can get going with this. And then as far as how to use SharePoint once it's ready, we do have a SharePoint compliance training that all the contractors are welcomed and highly encouraged to go through once it becomes available. So whoever will be submitting deliverables, if it's the coordinator, if it's any other type of service staff, anything like that, you guys will be able to be trained to know how the system works, how to submit deliverables, and how the process flows. So at that point, are there any questions about submission? Again, as I mentioned, there will be official communication coming from us outlining this process later on, so you guys will have notes of that as well.
Hey, Gabby.
Yep.
This is Courtney. So for that training next week, is that training next week going to be on the interim submission process, or is it going to be part of that SharePoint training?
So I think the training next week you're discussing is at the Innovative Prevention Protocol training.
I thought it was submissions, but you may be correct. My apologies.
Oh, no worries. I was going to say, I don't think we have any trainings about submission just yet, because we're still working on getting official communication to you guys. But the training next week will be more involved with the completion of one of our templates that Emma will be going through later today, and that she went through previously in the scope of work for the Innovative Prevention Program Protocol. So that'll be a more in-depth session of how to complete that deliverable, since that is one of your first deliverables due, I believe, is due July 31st. So we'll be offering TA on that one if you guys need any assistance.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Are there any questions coming up in the chat that I can't see?
Not at the moment. Looks like the next slide is for lunchtime. Let me also check our agenda here. Lunch is scheduled from 12 to 1, so we're ahead of time.
So as far as scheduling, since we made up some time, I want to honor your guys' schedules, and I'm aware that you may have scheduled some things during your lunch hour from 12 to 1. So either what we can do, we can have a longer lunch, because I'm sure there's millions of things people need to attend to on a full day training, things that pile up. Or we can continue to have an hour lunch from now until, I guess, 12:35. But again, I want to honor in case you guys had any meetings or things you had to attend to during the 12 to 1 hour. So I guess it's kind of up to the group and what the group would prefer. Does anyone have any strong feelings for either option?
Early now to 12:30.
We have one vote for now to 12:30. We have one no preference.
Okay, well, how about we go till, oh, was there another one?
Yes, one person said 12:30. I think that means now to 12:30. Long lunch. 12:30, 12 to 1. We have a little bit of both. Okay, well, how about this? I want to, again, honor the schedule. I
I don't think us taking a longer lunch is going to impact anything negatively. So how about we decide just to come back at 1? So we will take a longer lunch. You guys have a little bit more time to attend to any other tasks you may need to, and we will resume at 1 and we'll get through the rest of our communication to you guys. Does that sound okay?
We got a thumbs up and a yes and a thank you. Another thumbs up.
Okay, perfect. Then hopefully no one's throwing
like
virtual
you're at-
tomatoes at me. Okay, perfect. So yeah, we'll break till 1 and then we'll go ahead and resume and get started. And just big thank you to my team members here for taking on the torch. And hopefully by 1 o'clock, I will be up and going again on my computer. So have a great lunch, guys, and we will see you back here at 1 o'clock.